You know, Nick, on item number 4, I spoke to Joanne McKenna, trying to arrange a site visit for that. She's supposed to be here tonight. So be thinking about when you'd be available.
I can't hear you.
On item number 4.
Public hearing.
I spoke to Joanne McKenna, who's counselor for the area. Joanne McKenna.
The councilors, I can't hear you.
I spoke to Joanne McKenna, counselor of Ward 1, about a site visit.
You did.
Yes.
You had a site visit with your...
No, to schedule one.
Oh, and when is she wanted?
She's supposed to be here tonight.
Okay.
Rick? No. Oh. Okay, it's 7 PM, so I'm going to start the September 6, 2017 meeting of the Revere Conservation Commission. First item on the agenda is roll call. Member Robert Cassidy.
Here.
Member Vincent Lauria.
Here.
Member Joseph Lavalley.
Here.
Member Nicholas Melason.
Here.
Member Ann Raponi.
Here,
Member James Serboni.
Here.
And I'm Andrew B. DeSantis, Chairman of the Conservation Commission. Next item is the approval of the minutes of August 2nd, 2017. I have a motion by Nick Malation,
Second.
second by Vin, second by Vin Lauria to approve the minutes. Do I have, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next item on the agenda is a public hearing, abbreviated notice of resource area delineation for 459, 463 Revere Beach Boulevard, H&B Construction out of Saugus, Mass. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Nick Melason. Second by
Ann.
Ann
Raponi will
Raponi.
second it.
All those in favor? Signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Voted in the affirmative. Rick, introduce yourself, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Members of the Commission, for the record, my name is Rick Salvo with Engineering Alliance. Here this evening on behalf of H&B Construction. Excuse me, just ran up the stairs. Also with me this evening is Attorney Chip Nyland, who's also working on this project with us. The subject property is located at 459 to 463 Revere Beach Boulevard. If I flip this, this might put it in a little bit better context. The bathhouse down on the boulevard is located here. These are 4 properties that are located directly across the street from the bathhouse. All 3 of the, or excuse me, 3 out of the 4 properties are developed with single-family dwellings, as you can see, and then there's a 4th lot at the rear, which is vacant. For the benefit of any of the abutters that might be here, there is no proposed development scheme at this time. We're simply filing an existing conditions plan to discuss the resource areas that exist on site in an effort to get the tools that we need to be able to come up with a design. Most likely, this design will be filed back as a notice of intent with this commission once we get the resource areas agreed upon by all parties. And it's likely going to be a multifamily condominium type project. But nonetheless, the resource areas were delineated by Greg Hummock of Williams and Sparagus. There's 3 major resource areas on this property. As you know, Revere Beach is identified by CZM and mapped as a barrier beach. So this whole area of the boulevard is a barrier beach. There is a bordering vegetated wetland located off-site to the rear of the property, delineated by a series of wetland flags that are shown on the plan, were located by field survey. That BVW fringe with the salt marsh behind it is located off-site to the rear, similar to the line that's been delineated down the street for the beach house project. That line's pretty consistent as it heads right down the beach. That resource area is located off-site on the property, but it does include a 100-foot buffer zone with it, which obviously extends onto the subject property. As you know, this whole site was remapped back in March of 2016 by FEMA. It's a coastal floodplain Zone AE, elevation 11, which under the Wetland Protection Act regulations is identified as the resource area known as land subject to coastal storm flowage. That line I've highlighted in red right here is elevation 11. So it extends, the front side of the boulevard is actually outside of the floodplain, and that line back is located within the floodplain. According to the survey, which was done on the NAVD 88 datum, the topography on site ranges from about elevation 12 up at the road down to about elevation 5.5 towards the rear of the property. If I take each of the properties in order here, the first parcel has a two-family dwelling on it, bituminous concrete driveway, extends to the rear, retaining wall in the front, small maintained yard area in the rear. The second dwelling also has a retaining wall in the front, maintained yard area with a driveway on the side. And the third dwelling, same thing, driveway, paved driveway along to the rear, hard pan gravel area to the rear, and a little bit of maintained lawn in the front. These lots are all fully developed. We did insert data into the ANRAD that that indicates that although this is a barrier beach, in our belief it does not contain any coastal dune resource areas because the land is completely consolidated. It's not able to move and erode and do the things that dunes need to do because it's locked in by a roadway, a sidewalk, retaining wall, dwellings, bituminous driveways, and hard pan gravel areas. And I think that's pretty consistent with other notices of intent that have been filed up and down the beach. So I think with that, that's essentially the proposal. Like I said, we're not proposing any design at this point. We just want to make sure that we're all in agreement with the resource areas. Once the resource areas are agreed upon by the commission and with DEP, we will then have the tools that we need to be able to proceed into the design phase of the project. We would then come back before this commission, re-notify the abutters, replace and add in the paper so everyone would be notified as to what the actual development scheme would be for this site. So I guess with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd turn it back for you for any questions or comments.
Is this development by Wright Ridge?
Yes. It's in the RC1 zoning district, which allows an FAR of 3, a height of 120 feet or 12 stories, and multifamily development is allowed by right.
Okay. And do you expect if we issue an order just for land subject to coastal storm flowage that you'll be appealed?
Well, I don't know.
I expect you would be based on previous submittals, you know, particularly
For this project or?
Not for that project, for the project you worked on down the street.
Correct, and the project that we worked on down the street was not regulated as a coastal dune. It was this identical scenario to this. It was land subject to coastal storm flowage and buffer zone to the resource area that's in the back. That was the resource areas that were identified in that order of conditions. There was discussion with the DEP.
Based on an appeal.
Based on appeal, which was later withdrawn. So the resource areas that the commission had identified originally for that project, which is not
And
too
you
far
saw the
down.
comments on the,
I did see the comments, and that's a
Application.
discussion that we're happy to have with DEP if they so choose to have that conversation.
okay. Any questions from the commissioners?
Yes, sir.
Member LaValle?
Is there an easement through one of the front properties for?
There is. There is.
Could you point it out?
There's an easement that runs right down here, which is a sewer easement, which is for the benefit of the bathhouse that's across the street. There's sewer drains underneath the boulevard through this easement and connects to the sewer main that's located at the back of the property. As you might recall from previous filings, The sewer on the boulevard runs along the backs of the properties. It doesn't run along the street.
But that's only, it's indicated as only 5 feet.
Correct.
So that wouldn't be used as an access to the property if it's developed.
No, we would work with the entity that benefits from that easement to relocate that easement, relocate that sewer line, so to get it outside of the setbacks and outside of the development.
And there, where would you have the availability of going through the property?
So obviously the zoning has front yard setbacks, side yard setbacks, and rear yard setbacks. What we would do is we would relocate the sewer within those setbacks to get it outside of the zoning envelope, or get outside of the building footprint, excuse me.
And then where would be the access from the boulevard to the property?
I think we're confusing two things, so let me just make sure you're clear. Are you talking about, so the easement that's there isn't for access?
If that property is developed,
Yep.
how would individuals access the property from the boulevard?
Oh, through a curb cut. We'd go to DCR and get a curb cut permit.
Yes, but that property there is already owned by the 3 houses, correct?
I think I'm missing. So the owner is going to purchase all 3 houses, demolish the 3 houses.
Oh, all right, I wasn't clear.
Okay, yeah,
on that.
and build a new development there.
Okay, all right, thank you.
But that would come in a subsequent filing.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I have a question.
Go ahead. Member Savoni.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for preparation of an ANRAD. We don't get too many here, so it's nice to see that before submittal of an NOI, especially in an area subject to so many resource areas. But I did have a question about how the BVW was delineated, and I know you mentioned something about it being consistent with other delineations in the area, but is that normal to see BVW preceding a salt marsh area, and why was it classified as BVW? Because that's a more favorable determination for you
Well, no,
when you develop the area versus salt marsh.
Yeah, no, the salt marsh is still there. You know, back years ago when the delineations were done, there wasn't a differentiation between the BVW and the salt marsh. Now there's a small fringe of BVW. I don't think there's a harm with both boxes being checked because there is a salt marsh back there. We're not trying to hide the fact that there's a salt marsh back there. We would expect that both boxes would be checked on the ORAD should the commission choose to issue one.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, both off-site, yeah.
Through the chair,
Go
this
ahead,
is,
Member Lavalley.
I'm not sure if you would have this kind of information, but is there a height limit on property at that location?
120 feet,
How many floors is that?
12.
12? Thank you.
There's, and I can just say, even though we haven't done any development schemes here, there's no propensity from the developer to build a high-rise here.
Rick, you want to explain what the difference is in construction regarding if it's land subject to coastal storm flowage, bordering vegetated wetland, and salt marsh versus Berry Beach?
Sure, well, obviously, the land subject to coastal storm flowage doesn't have any performance standards at the moment, so would be subject to FEMA regulations and local City of Revere regulations. The salt marsh, again, we're fortunate, even though there is a salt marsh off-site, that it's not on-site, so you're not allowed to fill that, but we wouldn't be filling it because it's simply not on our property. The barrier beach basically has to be significant, and Chip, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, in terms of storm damage prevention, and either fall under the performance standards of a coastal dune or a barrier beach, neither of which exist on this property.
That still doesn't explain the difference between construction, as I think you explained in your submission.
I
Or
guess I
you
don't
had
understand.
verbally informed me.
Say again?
or you had verbally informed me, you know, building
Well,
on a
the different-
platform versus putting in,
Oh, well, the difference is
foundation.
if it were regulated as a coastal dune, so imagine that this site weren't developed and it were a sand dune, then you wouldn't be allowed to disturb any of the dune grass, which doesn't exist there. You wouldn't be allowed to disturb the dune, and the construction wouldn't be allowed to prevent the dune from doing the things that dunes need to do, such as, you know, erode on one side and grow on another side, and move and shape and change layer form. So typically, when there's construction on dunes, it's all pile supported, up in the air, and prevents impeding the ground from being able to move and do the things that it needs to do if it were an actual sand dune.
but as construction that you had mentioned of, what, a 4-story or 5-story building, I forget which exactly, that would be on a foundation, and it wouldn't have parking underneath? Is that what's being considered?
It could, we don't know yet. We don't know what the actual design is going to consider. I think, you know, based on the way the physical features of the boulevard exist, and if you look at the other developments on the boulevard, and even Ocean Ave for that matter, all the way from, say, the Ocean 360 to the beach house, they all sort of lend themselves for drive-under parking in the rear, front entry elevation at the street, just because of the grade difference that exists between the boulevard and the existing grades towards the rear. It just sets itself up naturally to have a level of parking underneath the building at grade, perhaps a level at grade at the boulevard elevation, and then stories of wood frame above that. So if you looked at the development that's next door to Seaview Towers, the beach house, that's exactly how it's set up, right? You drive down the back, enter into the rear for the low-level parking, enter from the boulevard to the surface-level parking, and then there's X stories of wood frame above that.
But yet, Seaview Towers doesn't have any parking underneath, it's simply all at grade?
It's all at grade, but they have developed space down there. They have their boiler room down there, and basement space and storage space and that sort of thing, which I think, you know, completely different. That's back under the high-rise category, you know, and it seems as though when the zoning was written, perhaps it was meant to encourage high-rise construction with the 120-foot requirement in the FAR of 3, but like I said, we're not really at that point with this project yet, but not really contemplating a high-rise.
Okay. Anybody else on the commission?
I just
This is
have
a
one more
public
question,
hearing.
please.
Go ahead, Member Saboni.
Just out of curiosity, so clearly you're in the 100-foot, what you're showing as the 100-foot buffer zone, that's for BVW
Or salt marsh,
or salt marsh, either one, so the requirements are the same?
correct.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Anybody else on the commission? Anybody in the audience would like to speak on this, or it's a public hearing? In favor of or against? Come up to the microphone and introduce yourself, please. Come up to the microphone and introduce yourself, please.
Not particularly anything about the wetlands thing, but we actually live next door.
Yep.
And the
What's your name and your address,
Kevin
please?
Fulgoni, 457 Revere Beach Boulevard.
What's your last name, Jim? I didn't get that.
Fulgoni,
Folzoni?
yeah. Anyway, the houses are pretty much empty now. And I was just wondering if they're gonna sit there empty, or are you gonna knock them down pretty quickly? That's basically, I don't wanna see them sitting there and, you know, collect vagrants and that kind of thing. I was just wondering if that was.
Yeah, I don't believe Rick's client is the owner, is he?
Not yet. He has it under agreement. So I guess the answer to the question would be the applicant's intent is to get through the permit process, which is likely to take several months. And as soon as the permit process ends and he receives his permit, close on the property, immediately demolish the buildings and begin construction.
Yeah, but for the abutters who are concerned, you know, anyone who develops, if they're empty now, anyone who develops that property is going to have to come in and secure the same permit, so.
Yeah, so, and that question is probably a more appropriate question when we come back and file an actual notice of intent for the development. I think at that point in time, we'll have the actual footprint of the development and the contents of what the development's gonna be completely figured out, which will give us a roadmap to exactly what our permits are, and we would be able to give you a much better timeline at that point as to when things would happen and in what sequence.
What was the timeline for that? I mean, that could stay vacant.
So the timeline, so the timeline for that is, we have to get through this process, and once this process ends and everyone's in agreement, we then have the tools to go to the drawing board and design a project, which is probably gonna take, a couple of weeks, probably gonna take 3 to 4 weeks to actually design it, prepare a notice of intent, prepare all the stormwater calculations, the grading designs, understand what the footprint's gonna be. No, that won't be months, because there's already been some conceptual work done, so we're probably about a month away from filing a notice of intent, I would say. Yeah, unfortunately, my client right now doesn't own the properties,
I agree,
so.
but three vacant houses is a concern for anyone that lives in that neighborhood.
Yeah, I didn't realize they were vacant at this point, so.
Okay. Well,
Mr.
appreciate if you
Chairman?
bring the concerns of the abutters back to your client and let him bring it up to the current owner.
Yeah,
You know,
the
'cause
intent
naturally
here
it's in
isn't,
your best interest and your client's best interest to work with the abutters.
absolutely.
Mr. Chairman? if I
Member
may.
Raponi.
I hear you say you're going to pay us another visit
Yes.
within a couple of months?
No, hopefully, I don't think we'd be able to make the agenda for the next meeting, but certainly file by the next meeting an actual design proposal for this property.
Well, that was my next question. I don't want to sound redundant, but what you expect to have before us, what will you be presenting to us on your next visit here? I'd like to know what's in store, what are your plans from now until our next meeting,
Sure,
and what
it-
we can expect.
Sure, you can expect to see a multifamily condominium development, low-rise.
That's about it?
That's about it.
Thank you.
Well, you're not going to be able to make the next meeting.
Correct.
Do you think you'd be able to start a concurrent process with the other city agencies?
Yeah, we
Before
would-
you're even to
Absolutely,
conservation?
absolutely. We would go back, meet with the site plan review board probably one time. I expect that, unless the DEP throws a wrench into the works, that we would have a filing to you at least by your next meeting. Not to be on the agenda, but filed by the next meeting.
Okay. Anything else? Anybody else like to speak on this? What's the wish of the commission on this? I've prepared a order of resource delineation for land subject to coastal storm flowage and bordering vegetated wetlands. So I'll entertain a motion
I'll motion to
to
close the
close the
hearing.
public hearing.
I'll make a motion.
To close the public
Correct.
hearing and issue the ORAD.
Yes.
Do I have a second?
I'll
Yes,
second
I'll
it.
second it.
Who spoke first? Nick? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Voted in the affirmative.
Thank you very much for your time.
Here you go, Nick. Next item on the agenda is abbreviated notice of resource area delineation Suffolk Downs, Winthrop Ave and Furlong Drive, the McClellan Highway Development Company, LLC. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
I'll make a motion to open it.
And Vin? Do I have a second?
Second.
Who is that? Toby, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Voted in the affirmative. Floor is yours.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Doug Mans. I am a partner with the HOM Investment Group. We are the owners of the Suffolk Downs site. We bought it in late May. And we are before you basically again for an ANRAD. So one of the key items for us is to, both in the city of Revere as well as the city of Boston, is to, confirm where the wetlands are. They have been mapped previously on both sides, but some time has passed, and so the goal for us was to reconfirm the wetland delineation and the resource areas. We're very early in our process. Again, it's really just to make sure that we're on the same page as the baseline. We do have some really great resource areas from our perspective, which also includes Sales Creek. I'm actually joined by Liz Clark of Beals and Thomas. She'll go through most of the details. The one thing I can kind of tell you that is, it is definitely our goal to incorporate the wetland resources into the open space network that we will develop in the future as part of the redevelopment. But again, we are also very early days, so the main goal was just to get on the same page with you guys to make sure that have the same understanding of where the wetlands are. And to be honest, not much has changed since they've been mapped before, but still we want to be before you and start this process. So I'll turn it over to Liz as she's going through more details.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Liz Clark. I'm from Beals and Thomas. I'm a registered professional engineer, and we are the civil engineers and wetland scientists for the project. We went out in early June, late June, early July to map the resource areas. And when we did that, we did find about 5 different resource areas on site. We have bank, bordering vegetated wetland, riverfront area, land subject to coastal storm flowage, and we also have riverfront area as well. Sales Creek traverses the site, starting up near Winthrop Ave. It comes out underneath the culvert and daylights in the northern portion of the site.
Would you speak into the
Sorry.
microphone,
Yes,
please, when you
I
speak?
can. It then travels via culvert underneath Tomasello Road, opening back up just north of the track, and then going again under culverts into the infield of the track, and then leaving the site via culverts. When we mapped our wetlands, we did 5 different series in A, B, C, D, and H. The A series is the northern section of Sales Creek. In this area, we found only bank. This was delineated based off of break and slope. We did look at other indicating factors such as vegetation changes and soil modeling, and there was no bordering vegetated wetland vegetation surrounding this area. Our bank delineation does match the mean annual high water line. Going south, we're into the B and C series, just south of Tomasello Road. Again, in this area, we found only bank. There was no bordering vegetated wetlands associated with this area. And then going south again into the infield, this area we did find BVW surrounding Sales Creek. So in this area, we have the 25-foot urban riverfront, the land underwater bank, and BVW. The H series on the southern property line adjacent to Waldemere Ave is an intermittent stream where, again, when we delineated that, we did not find any bordering vegetated wetland area. It was just the bank delineation. And this stream doesn't show up on the USGS map. The land subject to coastal storm flowage is based upon...
Point of information, could you point that out on the map, please? And that doesn't show up on here, is that correct?
On the intermittent stream doesn't show up on the USGS map. We have the edge of the stream delineated on the plan. You're welcome. So the land subject to coastal storm flowage is based upon the 2016 FEMA flood map delineations. On our site, we do have the same NAVD 1988 datum of elevation of 11 throughout the site, and we did convert it to Boston City base. So we're showing the floodplain at elevation 17.46 and 16.46 on the site. Our site is generally flat in the Revere area, and it does encompass the majority of the site. It's delineated by a red line. Kind of coming through, I guess, really, the only high point is really the track at this point. Are there any questions on the delineation or the wetlands?
I have a question,
Member Saboni?
and thank you for the detailed ANRAD. Let me start by saying, whatever is going in this area, I think the developer came up, introduced the presentation by saying there are some really nice resource areas within the project vicinities, so I would agree with that, and whatever the proposed plans are for this area should incorporate significant green space and sustainability, and that's what we'd be
Bring
looking
the
for.
mic a little closer to your mouth here.
I'm sorry, is that better?
That's much better.
So how do you explain the lack of BVW with the exception of the infield area?
To clarify, our wetland scientist is at the Boston Conservation hearing right now, and she can definitely provide more detail on that. My understanding is that there was neither hydric soils present once you got past the bank, and there wasn't any vegetation. There's a lot of Phragmites on the site, but there wasn't anything substantial around the A, B, C, and H series.
Anything further, Jim?
That's it, thank you.
Okay. Liz, continue, or you looking for additional questions?
Are we going to do a site walk, or?
We're going to schedule a site walk. I want to see if there's questions from the members. My question is, where are you with Boston Concom? Are they meeting tonight? I thought
They are meeting tonight as well, and we are presenting our ANRAD there tonight as
Okay,
well.
so you don't know when they have scheduled a site walk?
No, not
I
at
had
this point.
hoped Joanne McKenna, president of the Friends of Belle Isle Marsh, as well as City's Ward 1 Council would be here tonight. Barbara, are you here in her stead? Okay. Okay, so because I had asked her to check with the Friends to find out a date that would be good for a site visit.
It would be our preference to do it at least a week before the next hearing. In case we had to move a flag, we could reflect that on the plans.
Yeah, the only date I can't do it is this coming Saturday.
Okay.
So I think the best course of action would be to see what Boston Conservation Commission is going to do for a site visit and do it currently.
Okay,
You know, I think it's a good idea for us to see the resources in Boston and for Boston to see the resources in Revere.
Yeah, we definitely can facilitate that as best as we can. So we do not have a date yet from the city of Boston.
Okay. All right, so we're going to maintain the public hearing open, is my suggestion. Then set up the site visit.
okay,
I suggested on a Saturday because several of our members still work. They're fortunate they're young.
okay, we'll be in touch.
Okay, so could I have a motion to continue?
Make a motion to continue to next hearing, next month?
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Who was that? Bob? So we'll continue to the meeting of.
Hey, Commissioner Stewart, clear. So next Saturday, this Saturday does not work for you, but the other Saturdays do?
The other Saturdays do, yes.
Great, excellent, thank you.
So next meeting will be October 4th.
Okay.
Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Voted in the affirmative.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next item on the agenda is a vote, DEP file number 0610694, request for a certificate of compliance, 101 Summer Street, single-family home, Kevin Marley.
Good evening.
Item. Floor is yours, Kevin.
What was that?
Floor is yours.
My name is Kevin Molly, and this is in regards to 101 Summer Street for certificate of compliance.
Any questions for Kevin?
I'd like him to speak into the mic.
Any questions for Kevin?
No, I don't, except that I like to have him speak into the.
Oh,
You
what
want
would
me to
you like
repeat
to
what I
have
said?
him say? You have a question for him?
No, I don't have a.
Bring the mic closer to your mouth, Kevin.
Okay.
I'd like to hear you better.
Okay, my name's Kevin Molly, and I'm here on regards to 101 Summer Street for certificate of compliance.
And he's done with the project, and he's got it sold to somebody who works for Revere DPW, local guy,
Yep.
lives down the street, so wish him luck. Do I have a motion to issue his,
I'll motion to close the hearing and issue,
it's just a...
issue the certificate of compliance, sorry.
I'll second it.
Who is that, Vince? Oh, Nick. All those in favor? Any opposed? Vote in the affirmative. All right, we'll get this signed tonight.
Thank you. Can you, sign the occupancy?
Yes, I'll sign the occupancy. Yeah. All right, Kevin, we'll see you. Next item on the agenda is a public meeting, request for termination of applicability, 31 McKinley Street, installation of a cement concrete patio, Alfredo Camacho. Alfredo, come up to the microphone, please. Tell the commission what brought you here.
Well, first of all, good evening, everybody. I'm here just to fill up this application to build a patio in my backyard, concrete patio for a 24 by 36. Let's say it's to fix a problem.
Speak into the microphone.
Yeah, it's to
Alfredo.
fix a problem. I have to flood it into my basement. It's a lot of water coming into my basement when it's raining. So I decided to put a concrete patio in the backyard to fix this kind of problem because it's flooding in the backyard. So I don't know if you have any questions.
Thank you. And what happened with the building department?
They send me over here. They say I have to come first over here so you can.
What did they tell you before that?
They say they don't. I don't need any permit because it's going to be a patio. And I say, well, I don't gonna need a permit. I decided to put a patio on it. But after that, they told me, yes, I have to get a permit from the commission, and I didn't know about it, and I am here, just to complain with these requirements.
So you put the
So-
patio in, and then they came back and
Yeah,
they said,
they came. I don't know
can't have
if
it.
somebody called or whatever. I mean, something I don't mind, because like I told the building department, I am plenty, agree to follow all the regulation. I've been living in Riviera for 20 years, so I've been in this country for 30 years, and 20 of this 30 I've been living in Riviera. So I am totally agree to follow these directions if I know them. If somebody said, you have to follow these, I have totally agree, no problem. I have no problem to follow this. And they said, you can do it, I don't do it, but
Okay.
at this point, so.
So what's the will of the commission on this?
I'll,
Can I ask
motion, yep.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask,
Member LaValle.
if this is, so the patio was already built?
Yeah,
Yeah, and
I
it-
mean, I am.
Well, let me ask you this, what is the elevation? Is it the same level as the property around it, or did you build it up a little bit, or?
It's, it's right the same of the grass, the soil. So it's nothing like, I put it, 1 foot or whatever it is. The depth of the concrete is 4 inches and a half.
Well,
So it's-
when you
no.
built it, did you build down
No,
to
no.
put gravel?
No, yeah, I put gravel and I put all the.
So you must have dug down a little bit, right?
Yes, just to put it on the, the same level as the grass. So, but it wasn't too much. What they have to dig anyway.
Yeah, so I guess, had you come before us, before you built it, there would have been a negative determination. Now it's after the fact. So it kind of puts us in a little bind, as you can see, but I'll motion to issue a negative determination of applicability.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second it, yeah.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Vote in the affirmative. Okay, you're all set, Alfredo.
Almost there.
Yeah.
Thank you very
I gotta
much.
make copies of this, and then I'll send it to you.
All right, thank you very much for the
I'll
time.
email you a copy first, so you can go to the building department and clear everything with them. Okay, you're welcome. Yeah, anytime you do anything in that area, now you know. You're welcome, Alfredo. And you see by the agenda items, we did get an appeal on 571 Revere Street. I haven't got the letter when the meeting is yet.
It's not here. Do we have it?
Well, they only sent me one copy in. Excuse me? Yeah, they sent me one copy. If anybody wants to read it, they're welcome to.
I'll make a motion to close out the meeting.
Make a motion to close out the meeting. Here you go, Ann. Motion to adjourn by Nick Malayson. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
By Vin. Adjourned at 7:43. Thank you.
I'm glad you came in with an ANRAD first. I just want to put them on notice.
That's right.
It's a lot of nice resource areas around there.
Thank you. If you want to see the appeal, go on the website. There's a link to it. Yeah. Yeah, go to the website, go to meeting agendas, and you'll see it there.
I hope so. I'd like to believe I'm gonna.
How many are you, 10 or 12?
12 of us.
No primary.
If you count the people that are qualified, there's about 8 of us.
No, I would say 4.